Good morning. First of all, I have to explain some changes in the schedule, which I will do in German. Wir haben ein paar Programmänderungen leider. Um 11:45 Uhr auf Stage 5 die Demokratisierung der Drohne mit Jutta Weber muss leider ausfallen. Stattdessen findet dort statt Datenbefreiung selbst gemacht. Um 13:45 Uhr ist von Stage 5 auf Stage 1 verschoben, die EU-Datenschutzreform als Balanceakt. Und um 13:45 Uhr von Workshop D auf Stage 5 verschoben ist the Outernet. Warm welcome again. The claim of this year's Republica is Inside Out, and so we were really interested in looking outside Europe, how digital media used there, and in partnership with Deutsche Welle, we organized a panel on blogging and so on in India and China.
Hello and welcome to our panel today, and we are going to talk about the blogosphere in Asia. And first of all, I have to disappoint you all because there is not a blogosphere in Asia. Simply because there is not one Asia, so there is a different blogosphere in every country, and we are going today to look at 3 of these countries. I'm very happy to have 3 people here at this panel, and I will introduce them to you, starting with Rajesh Kumar, to my right. He's a journalist, and he moderates television programs for the Indian private broadcaster NDTV. As a public figure, he is able to start discussions on very controversial topics. And he says that in India, microblogging is not used to change politics, but it's the other way around. Politicians are trying to use and to change microblogging for their purposes. Right to my right is Hu Yong, a veteran on the net. He's been a citizen of the net for 18 years. He's been blogging for 9 years. And his blog has 3.5 million regular readers. And for him, the special situation in China is that in China, microblogging and blogging is the only channel for people to express their opinion and to use their freedom of speech. And to my left, Shahidul Alam. He is a founding member of the Bangladesh Human Rights Network, and he has set up a center for investigative journalism. For him, Bangladesh is not a good place to be if you're a blogger. And he says he's going to wear a t-shirt saying, "I'm a blogger," just to draw attention from the younger ones whose lives are threatened at the moment in Bangladesh. And so I will start with Rajesh Kumar to maybe give an overview on how the blogosphere has developed in India.
I'll be reading, so please bear with me. As you know, India is known as IT power, but irony is that India is still an offline country. Internet connectivity is spreading very fast, but online expressions are very elite and urban-centric. And diversities of Indian populations, regions, and languages are not reflected in online activity, and 60% of our population is still rural, and rural India has always been offline before and after the internet. So, but on the other hand, this is very interesting, 80% of the population connected by mobile phones, and most of the mobile phones are just used as phones and not for the internet, because there are many reasons for this. And one interesting thing I would like you to know that you will find download vendors everywhere. They will take a small fee and download for you for video and for music by using Bluetooth and USB port. It's a small and very large-scale enterprise in India. You can find download vendors at every nook and corner of the streets. And smartphones, they do have, every phone, even cheaper phone, has Twitter and Facebook icons, but they are not used as they should have been. And because of the language is English and the diversities, phones are not equipped to express in Hindi or Bangla and Malayali and Tamil also. So, but one thing is very important, that missed calls are creating a business opportunity, and for the price-conscious common man. For example, domestic maids who work at the multiple places use missed calls as pre-arranged signals, say to go from one workplace to another. So we are, by and large, missed call nations if you see and map our online activities. So online activities should be seen in this context. And one important thing is that recently activities have become politically sensitive these days. And leaders who have been abusing online microblogging are now learning to be online. Twitter accounts are being used to show off that they have such and such a number of followers, as if they have already got the same number of votes in elections. We are pretty late in this regard, not because we were waiting for Obama to use it first for his election purposes, but India had seen massive failure of online political activity in 2004 elections. Since then, online became political taboo for our leaders. Now it's changing. And changing in other way. Online activity is hijacked by right-wingers. Internet Hindu is the main force on the Twitter. Many leaders are using Internet Hindu. It's a group, it's a right-wing, not as a group, it's a thinking alliance to fight for their agenda on Twitter. They come in hordes, attack you, and leave in no time. BJP and Congress, there are two national parties in India. They are preparing their cadre to how to outnumber each other on Twitter and Facebook. Mainly this war is going on Twitter. So, but otherwise this field is open for the party cadre. Headquarters of parties are making micro-blogging cells. IT cells are being revived and giving prominent leaders are giving in charge of to look after IT cells, and so that they can do their agenda on this online activities. And last thing, they have started taking names of Twitter and Facebook in their speeches, and they're announcing Google Hangouts as if they have invented it. Hangouts are hugely manipulated by them. And Twitter and Facebook, which played a great role in anti-rape movement, is still very anti-women also. If you read or online, especially text of being used on Twitter, it's a highly anti-women, and there is no such movement against this, because the right-wing group uses this tool in their benefit. So, and again, one more thing, that Twitter has changed television much than the politics and the expression of the masses. Before it became the propaganda tools of the politicians, news channels invented their own equivalent called speed news. News has always been associated with the speed news, but some Indians, not some, many Indian news channels have started giving 200 news stories in 24 minutes. 200 news stories in 24 minutes. That's lightning speed. So, and each news is a one-liner, just like 140 characters. TV has become an extension counter of Twitter for mundane debates. Walls of newsrooms guarded by editors have already been demolished by these urban elitist Twitterati or Chatarati, and the debates are mainly urban-centric like tweets are. So these are the situation in our country. Censor is not an issue that much in other parts of the world. Here manipulation is an issue, and the political groups are making their cadre to censor you in a politically. They will censor you in a politically. If you write something against any leader or any party, they will come in horde and discredit you like anything. They will torture you online by their text. So these kind of activities is going in India. That's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. So I just one question to you. You are still blogging and twittering, right? You're still using Twitter.
I still blog, and I have taken a short leave from Twitter activities because of this kind of abusive political campaign planted and managed by the political parties.
Okay. So the situation is very different in China, whereas in India, politicians are using microblogging for their purposes. In China, microblogging and blogging is the only way, the only tool how people can express their opinions. So it's been used very differently. Huyong, can you tell us how they're using it, for what purposes?
Talking about the Chinese blogosphere, also we include the Twitter kind of service in China. We call it Weibo, so that's microblogging. So I think the audience should always bear three things in mind when you're thinking of the Chinese blogosphere. The first one, as the moderator just mentioned, in China, internet becomes the only channel or only outlet for people not only to express themselves more freely than traditional media, but also a kind of way of organizing themselves. So the reason of this is usually the traditional media are controlled by the state. It's all state-owned. And the Chinese people do not have other ways of expressing themselves, like we don't have free elections yet. And also, we don't have an independent judiciary system. So that put all things into the internet. Another very prominent feature in China is that nearly all the internet services are provided by domestic companies. I mean, in this field, Chinese companies defeat all the international giants, be it search engine, electronic commerce, social media, our news portal, or video sharing. So in China, 70% of people, they're not using Google as their searching service. They're using a domestic one called Baidu. Also, we have this Weibo, which is hugely more popular than Twitter, and we cannot access Facebook in China. So that comes to the third prominent feature, that is in China, the censorship is pervasive in the Chinese cyberspace. As I just mentioned, we cannot access Facebook, also Twitter, also YouTube, and many other services, international services. So as my Indian colleague just says, in India, censorship is not a problem, but manipulation is a problem. In China, I think both censorship and manipulation are the problem.
Thank you, Huyong. And for Bangladesh, the situation is also very different. If in India, bloggers are threatened by right-wing people and also politicians who misuse the microblogging, in China, it's the state. And how about in Bangladesh?
Well, we try and stay ahead of the competition. In Bangladesh, bloggers are persecuted by everyone around. I'm not being facetious, but rather than give an overview of a very complex situation, I think it would make more sense to give you a sense of what's happening on the ground today, which will give you an indication of the general phenomenon. YouTube was closed down by the Bangladesh government in September 2012. It's still closed. And except for the blogosphere, really no one has been protesting about it. One of the problems we have is an issue of trust. Because mainstream media is so completely dominated by corporations or political parties, it's very difficult for people to actually believe what any particular mainstream media channel is talking about. So trust actually comes through word of mouth. You trust someone you know. You trust people who have built a track record. You trust people who have, over a period of time, established their credibility, which is not mainstream media. And that is what makes blogs so important, because the blogosphere, of course, has its own share of propaganda and partisanism and extremism. But there are individuals within the blogosphere who have, over a sustained period of time, been reporting as and when things happen, and they've built a community around them who trust them. And that gives them their power. That is also what makes them dangerous. So right now, we have one blogger, Asif Mohiuddin, who is in jail. There are 3 other bloggers alongside him, and they have been arrested by the government. But prior to them being arrested, and perhaps I need to give you a bit of a background here, on the 5th of February this year, several bloggers, one of them being Asif, there were 6 key bloggers at that time, who led a campaign for occupying a central square in Bangladesh called Shahbag. And their call was very simple. They wanted a fair trial, they wanted justice, they wanted an untampered verdict on the trial of war criminals in Bangladesh. Now, this was a cry that many people could relate to, and I was there on the 5th of February. It was at night, and kids were there, old people were there, people with long beards were there, women in jeans were there, pretty much the entire cross-section. So you had people who we wouldn't normally associate, because one of the things, and it's worth giving you a bit of a background, the war of 71 was our war of liberation, and at that time, Islamic forces had opposed our liberation and had sided with the occupation army. They'd been guilty of rape, of murder, of huge persecution. And of course, this was an unhealed wound that has stayed for all these years. And finally, a tribunal has been called where they're being tried. It was felt by the people that deals were being made, that negotiations were taking place which would allow people to get away without paying the penalty for their crimes. That was what pulled everyone together. That was the one rallying cry that got everyone together. What is very interesting is that this led to a massive gathering which was not orchestrated by any one political party. And that became a major threat for the political parties themselves. So for once, there was a political movement which was outside of their umbrella. And they took a back seat. A woman called Lucky Akhtar, who was one of the bloggers nominated for this contest, was attacked on the very early period, then by the student wing of the main political party. Then they patched up. It hasn't gone as well as we thought it might, because the government has been able to infiltrate. But what happened afterwards is the Islamists, who then were on the back foot, because there was this massive public opinion being very vociferously expressed in the streets, they then decided to label the bloggers as being anti-Islamist, as being atheists, and people who were going against religion. So then there was a big movement, and Bangladesh is largely Muslim, so it was very easy to inflame it by moving it away from the political structure to it being anti-religion. The government, on the other hand, retaliated by this recent action. So prior to this, on the 15th of January, Asif Mohiuddin had been attacked. It was winter, he was wearing coats and things like that, so while he got severe injuries in the spinal cord, the person who was meant to cut his neck hadn't arrived, and he'd actually managed to escape. He survived. After the 5th of February, when this thing broke loose, the number 2 on that campaign, a blogger called Rajesh, was assassinated by that method. His throat was slit. He was left in the typical way in which the signature of murder that these fundamentalists have had. What is ironic is since then, Asif and these 4 bloggers have been arrested by the government because the government wants to appease the Islamists. So we are at a very interesting situation where individual political parties are playing with these bloggers depending upon their personal political interests. That, of course, happens. But what is also important is that there is a huge public support for these bloggers and that these bloggers have tried to continue doing their work. But of course, in Asif's case, that hasn't been possible. The government has actually closed down his particular blog. And now one of our concerns is that while, on the one hand, these bloggers might get a sentence of 10 years of rigorous imprisonment, even if they be released, they're vulnerable because in Asif's particular case, he's already had an attack and, of course, he's labeled, which is why I mentioned that I need to take on that sign saying, I'm a blogger. I'm older, I have better connections, I'm more prominent, I'm less vulnerable than these young bloggers. And I think some of us are now feeling that we need to take the heat away from those people and try and protect them.
So in a way, bloggers are an endangered species in Bangladesh, and it's very, if you choose to be a blogger, you have to really think about the consequences.
Absolutely. But on the other hand, it is because they're effective, because they're powerful, because they're actually doing what they're meant to be doing, that they are a threatened species. I think if it was that they were doing this thing and did not make a difference, I think that itself would also have been an issue. So I think they need to stay an endangered species, and we need to find ways of ensuring their protection.
If they have a community that backs them up, is there not enough pressure on the government to release them, or at least ensure that their safety is taken care of?
It's a very good point. It would have been very valid had the normal rules of popularity applied, because at the moment, the government's strategy to win the next election is not through getting votes, but through rigging. And as long as they can ensure that the elections take place under their desired procedures, it doesn't really matter what the people think.
Election is a good word, is a good cue to India, because the politics, the reason why politicians are now using microblogging is because of the elections. They want to swing or want to change the mindset of the people. Do you think they have a chance in doing that if they are trolling people's account, threatening people if they say something political?
See, from Indian point of view, urbanization is taking place with a faster speed, and many political constituencies are becoming more urban. And Facebook is 90% in India, and Twitter account consists of just 11 or 12%. So, and as I said, entire activity is very urban. So politicians, they do have such kind of impression that they are tempering our opinion. If you see online activities, anti-corruption movement is going on. But who all are leading this anti-corruption movement? Major part of this is the Internet Hindu, the right-wing group, who keeps silence about their corruption in their own state. Today, one election results have come out in Karnataka, where Bengaluru is situated, our IT center, and Congress government, which runs a central government, Congress party has voted for power. So it's very confusing. The online opinion is not reflecting in our election campaign, and Karnataka was meant to be a test case where online opinion is failed, did not have any impact on voters' mind as far as this kind of anti-corruption movement goes. So I think this will change. they are trying to take this seriously. We must take internet connectivity because they think that if there is more than 100 million people are using Facebook and Twitter, but in context of our 1 billion plus population is very minuscule. And it doesn't, urban voters don't vote also in great numbers. So it's a disconnect. And I think after today's result, they are going to rethink. They will rethink about their internet policy and activities. So they will take less serious than what they were trying to plan for 2014 elections.
If the politicians are not able to change the mindset of the people, do you think that public figures like maybe yourself, if you are discussing controversial topics, can you change the way people are thinking or are seeing their government?
We don't change overnight. That's our cultural and social composition is like that. We take our own time to change, and online activities and the celebrities, they too are like Amitabh Bachchan, our superstar, who has a million plus followers, but he's not challenging anything. He's not initiating any thought-provoking debate. He's just sharing his platform. So the celebrities don't exercise their power to be active in their opinion field. That I don't see that we will be able to change the opinion, because masses and the voter has its own loyalties, caste loyalties, religion loyalties, region loyalties, language loyalties. So there are so many loyalties of a voter that I'm not sure in what way I'm going to make them change overnight.
But Rajesh, you were saying that Amitabh Bachchan isn't doing it. I quite understand. But there are other people who are playing a prominent role, like Arundhati Roy has played a very important role.
But they are, yes, Arundhati Roy has a role before internet also. She was playing her role also before internet. But she's limited. As I said, that entire activity is urban-centric. And Arundhati Roy moves around, see, the English language, English elite, you cannot change our thinking by communicating and interacting with only English elite. That's the limitation of Arundhati Roy. So, and she's been branded by other way also by this right wing. The majority of internet activities and Facebook activities are hijacked by them. They are there. Because of their natural coincidence, they were outside of India, the Hindu diaspora. They started internet activities better than we were late. So if Arundhati Roy says, there are many people who are initiating debates also, and they are changing, but the examples are very rare. So you cannot give some hopeful example that we are changing the thinking of government, and though we also witnessed some kind of many movements, not like Tahrir Square or Occupy 99 movement, but we had our own Anna movement, anti-corruption movement. But the thinking of the government, thinking of the masses has not the way it should have been.
That is also a cue. If you say that the blogosphere in India is dominated by people who speak English, in China it is so strong because they use their own portals. They're using their own services, not the ones that we know like Facebook or Twitter, but the ones that are provided by domestic providers. And the other thing is, you said that in India, for example, maybe a lot of celebrities are reluctant to use microblogging or blogging or all these other channels to gain support. In China, it's different. Maybe you can tell us something about the case of Ai Weiwei. He was arrested because of tax evasion, and he started something on the internet to gain support from the Chinese people. What did he do?
I think Ai Weiwei's story is very familiar to Western ears. So I'd like to provide a little more background information. we do not, we cannot use Twitter or Facebook freely, but that does not mean that there is not a Chinese community on Twitter or on the Facebook. There are still people who use circumvention tools to get over the China's Great Firewall, and they can still access Twitter and Facebook. And also, of course, there are a huge overseas population, Chinese population. So Ai Weiwei actually, he's very active on Twitter, but he cannot do it on the domestic services. He used to have a Sina Weibo account, but it gets deleted. And his blog, actually, his Chinese blog, also on Sina, which is the biggest news portal in China, is also closed down by the authorities. So that leaves him the only way of communication with his followers or try to argue for his case. The only tool is Twitter. So he became a very heavy Twitter user. And although most of the Chinese, they are not using Twitter, they're using Weibo, but there is a constantly kind of exchange, because of the sharing spirit. You post something on Twitter, and somebody will carry it back into the Chinese Weibo, and even if some blogs gets deleted, there are some other guys who will post it in different places. So all this information is still getting around, and even if the authorities they try very hard to control every piece of information, but actually there are a lot of blocked or deleted messages. You can still getting them on the internet. So the Ai Weiwei story is like he was accused of the tax invasion, and he was kept for more than 80 days by the local police, and then the government is going to give him a very heavy fine. He has to pay the government dearly. So Ai Weiwei actually, he talks about his situation on Twitter, and somebody says, "Why don't we donate money to him?" So there is, a huge flood of money into Ai Weiwei's personal account, and people not only they're using Twitter to spread the news, they're also using the Chinese social media to do the same thing. So Ai Weiwei in a few days, right now I cannot remember the exact number, but he gets half of the the government's planned fine. So he gets a lot of money, but Ai Weiwei also promised that he will go on fighting with the government. He takes the case to the court, and he loses. But still, he says, all those debtors, I will pay you back. I thank you for your support, and every penny, every coin, I will pay you back. So I think it's kind of like a social activism kind of thing. So it shows it demonstrates not only Ai Weiwei's his spirit of protest, but also Chinese netizens' support of a guy who has courage to face whatever his fate will be like. Yeah.
So this is a very positive example how something on the net can sometimes even have an impact on day-to-day life, and how activism on the net can then have something to do with real life as well. About in Bangladesh, do you think that even campaigns started to put pressure on the government to release the bloggers who are incarcerated, do you think that will have success?
It's very unlikely. Quite frankly, the government at the moment has taken a very entrenched position and I think is trying to appease the extremists more than it's trying to appease its own population. One of the things I think it's worthwhile bringing up, you brought out the point of elections. We tend to think that democracy equates to a fair and free election. I think that is only a small part of the democratic process. The democratic process requires a particular type of thinking which is more tolerant, which gives space to others, and in our own electoral system, and not sure what it is like in China, but certainly India, democracy isn't practiced within the political parties themselves. So it's very unlikely that we will actually, simply by getting a fair and free election, get democracy. What we end up with is, when we have very limited choice, you choose the better devil, which is what we've tried to do. I think what has to happen is, over a period of time, sustained pressure needs to be applied to politicians so they're made accountable and they cannot get away with the things that they've done in the past. And I think that is the role that the blogosphere has to play. And one of the things it's now been able to do, which I think is a very positive step, is it's translated the online activity to also offline activity. The online activity has resulted in activism in the streets, it's resulted in resistance, it's demonstrated to the politicians that we have strength not only in numbers, but are also able to mobilize ourselves to take physical action. And I think it is that message, if it gets through, that will finally make a difference. I don't think otherwise they will worry too much about it.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we still have 20 minutes if there are questions from the floor. The floor is open. The microphone is over there. If you could stand up and ask your questions, and we will try to answer it from here.
Yes, I have a question to Mr. Hu Yong about the Chinese situation. Can you maybe put it in more general terms where the limit of freedom of speech is in the social media, the Chinese social media? As a normal person, what can you write or say in the social media without getting across the off-limit?
Freedom of speech on the Chinese social media is a very big topic. So in China, we have this the paradoxes. Actually, they coexist on the Chinese internet. On the one hand, we have very heavy-handed censorship. The government actually invests a huge amount of money and also manpower in controlling the information. Also, they have all the technical mechanism, the filtering software and the infamous Great Firewall. But on the other hand, Chinese netizens are still very, very active in discussing about social issues or even political issues. And many people actually, they criticize the government openly on the Chinese internet. I mean, this is very paradoxical. Still, there are people only because of he or she just saying something on the internet or on social media, he or she can get arrested and sent to prison or or labor camp. But more and more people, they are standing out. They want to speak out against the current situation, and also they are trying all kinds of ingenious ways to route around the censorship. They have a lot of tactics, or they try to maneuver their space. So that I think that puts the China's blogosphere. I think it must be one of the most, actually most lively and most vibrant online civil societies, if I can name this in that kind of way.
Hello. Thank you for those accounts. My question goes in the same direction, or also to Hu Yang, and it was partly already answered, because I'm interested in those practices of resistance, or you said there are specific tactics, and maybe you could name just another example. And I learned that there are code words, for example, that they're continuously developing code words that signify something else as they usually signify, and that there's communication with, maybe you have another example of that. And then my second question would be, how would you assess the way the Communist Party is dealing with this demand of freedom of expression and freedom of press? Maybe there is some kind of, how would you assess their view? Thank you.
Yeah, about the first question, actually, the Chinese has a long tradition of writing between the lines, because China is authoritarian. The nature of rule is lasts for thousands of years. So even in ancient times, the Chinese people cannot express them freely. So most of the people, of course, they're illiterate, but the intellectuals actually they are developing a kind of wisdom of writing. They are using all kinds of euphemisms, or ironic kind of way of expressing. That's already a long tradition. Coming to the internet age, so people still they have this tradition. And there are also netizens who are using the very ancient Chinese language to try to escape from the censorship, because in China we have the vernacular revolution at the beginning of last century. So we are not using the same old intellectual language as before. But now since the filtering software cannot detect exactly if we are writing in an ancient language, then people are still picking up, picking this language up. They are trying to fight with the censors, and also you have other, modern or postmodern kind of techniques. You can using cartoons, videos, or music. All kinds of ways to still you are trying to fight with the censors, and there are a lot of I don't have much time to talk about this, but there are a lot of inventions. For example, in China we have this Weibo service, which is a Twitter style of microblogging, and Chinese people invent a kind of, they call it long Weibo, which you can actually, because Weibo is only, just as Twitter, only contains 140 characters. But this long Weibo, you can write thousands of words. It's a long essay or or essay with photos. Then you convert it into a JPEG, a JPEG document, and just attach to the original post. So the text may be deleted, but this long Weibo, because it's JPEG format, so the census has to find some new ways to detect what are the JPEG document, what it contains, and what are the information there, and also we have this the mobile application called WeChat, which is hugely successful in China right now. So this WeChat also have a kind of, voice dialogue. I can talk to my cell phone, and of course I can talk to one of my contact person. And so just the voice transmission. So the voice actually is another way, kind of the sensors has to find some software or some techniques to detect the voice. So people are using this kind of things to still, even under heavy censorship, they still find a way out to express themselves. And for the second question, we just have the new leadership. So until now, we don't see any new signs or new indications that this leadership will loosen the control of information. So so when you are talking about freedom of expression or freedom of press or whatever, it's still a long way to go, because that kind of things is very tightly related to the overall Chinese political reform. If the political reform does not start very soon, so all the situation in terms of the whatever is traditional media, television or new media, it will still be the same. I mean, we don't have we cannot say very clearly that the censorship in China will soon end.
Thank you, Huyong. I think there are a couple of other questions.
Hi, I'm interested to learn more about to which extent women are active in blogging and tweeting to express their political opinions, and perhaps Shahidul Alam could start, as in Bangladesh we have with Sheikh Hasina, a woman at the top of the political game, and it's been like that over the past 2 decades, I believe, with Zia Khalida switching off between the two parties. So do women play a role in the political blogosphere in Bangladesh? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very interesting situation. You're quite right. From 1991 onwards, we've had, between Sheikh Hasina and Khalida Zia, it's been women prime ministers all the way through. In fact, until recently, we had a woman home minister, and right now, the speaker of the parliament is a woman. So that's quite special in that sense. However, I don't actually think that has necessarily translated into greater political space for women overall. What is very encouraging is that Bangladesh has an extremely vibrant civil society where women have played a very, very important role for a long time, and they continue to be very powerful actors. But there's 3 of us here, all 3 of us are men. And certainly there are more men in the internet space than there are women. Lucky Akhtar, who I spoke about, was one of the lead campaigners for the Shahbag movement. She was the one who was attacked, and she was one of the bloggers nominated and came through to the final rounds in this contest. So that is happening. On the net itself, that hasn't happened sufficiently, and there are several reasons for that. The net, of course, is relatively new. I mean, let me take you to a slightly different space, which is about cost. When we started email in the early 90s, it used to cost 30 cents per kilobyte to transmit data. So a 1 megabyte file would have cost $300. Internet, when it came, was hugely expensive. It has gone down, but in relative terms, it is still very, very expensive. Right now, I've been live streaming using Bambuser from here. If I were to do it in Bangladesh, I would have to do it very carefully. I would plan for a while, shoot a small clip, upload it, and then shoot another little clip, because that's the only way. I couldn't really do it in continuous real time. Now that imposes a lot of physical limitations, economic limitations, and when there is a gender difference where men at all levels have more potential, are more privileged than women are, that makes it that much more difficult. Having said that, I think women are playing a very, very powerful role. there is an organization called Ruqya Bahini. Begum Ruqya was a leading feminist who lived over 100 years ago in our part of the world and has written some of the most, some of the most strong literature in terms of feminism, including science fiction. And these group of women have named themselves after Ruqya, so it's Ruqya's battalion, if you like. And they have not only taken on the online space, they've also been very subversive in many situations, staging sit-ins, doing plays, designing songs, doing performances. The thing I want to come back to is, while the online space is an important space, in Bangladesh it is not an isolated space. It performs within a much wider space of activism, within which women are very important players.
I would also like to add, that's a very good question. In India also, microblogging is bringing women in greater number to express their political feelings, thinkings, and they are questioning political issues in a different way. Earlier it was not the same, and election by election, women are becoming deciding factor in politics and in winning elections. So in this point, in this context, it's a very hopeful sign that earlier our entire political public space is always been captured by men. The political violence is also plays a role of deterrent, but microblogging allows a greater freedom to them to remain political in public space.
Thank you, Rajesh. I think we only have 5 minutes left, so I think we're going to get one question, if it's short and simple, and then we have to wrap it up. But I think our panelists are still going to be here for maybe 10 or 15 minutes to answer your questions personally.
Okay, I'll try to make it short. Question for Hyung. You mentioned the enthusiasm about Weibo as a tool for political activism and criticism. I'd be interesting to know whether you think that is actually true or founded, or whether it's more a case of criticism on a local or provincial level being allowed as a kind of safety valve for the public to let off steam, whereas criticism on a more national level still being strictly censored. Thank you.
That's a very good question. I would say Weibo, its basic nature is national. Ever since the emergence of Weibo, China has a kind of geographical public space. People are talking about, news. Even this news is happening in a very remote area, like in the countryside. But if the news is big enough, it immediately became a national news. So we have a lot of cases that before Weibo, there were many, kind of crimes carried on in remote areas, but cannot be exposed. But after Weibo came out, we have a lot of the public opinion which is very, targeted at certain places, certain officials, and they demand certain results out of certain incidents. So that's one thing. It's very national one. On the other hand, people will still face high danger if this guy criticizes, where he lives, the local government. Because in China, the political structure is like this. The local leader, not only he commands the local police, but also he can control the local court. So that means if you openly criticize the local government, you will put yourself into a very dangerous position, because the local leader has too much power to crush you personally. So even if there is some very brave people who are doing this, they will have to, bear the consequences. So that's why people are kind of against the real name registration, because anonymity actually is a kind of protection for local people who dare to speak against their local leaders. So I must admit that to criticize local leaders is highly risky thing still right now in China.
Maybe we use the rest of the time we have to get one quick statement from each of you where you think the blogosphere in your country is going to go. Rajesh, if you want to start.
Hard to predict future when the information is moving so fast. But I think that the speed of information is not always equal to change of opinion. So we are realizing that this has potential to change the agenda, to change the country. And many old ladies, old persons who have fear for technologies are learning to be on blogging sphere or Twitter or Facebook. The Facebook is playing a greater role than other varieties of microblogging, and because it's less threatening, it gives you a private space where you can check who is entering into your friendship and who can access to your information. And most of them newcomers are like that. So, and that is why it will change, but very gradually. The change is very gradual. It's not going to be very fast. India is still trying to use, don't know how to use internet for public purposes. We don't have a situation like here you can everything. We also put up kiosk on public places, copied from the West, but our kiosks never works. So people dismantle by using them and try to learn from them. The fear of technology is greater. So that is making us to use them very fast. Like maybe like you, people are using social media. We are not using like that.
Hu Yong?
Although China and India have a lot of differences, but also I think they have similarities. One of the biggest similarity will be, I think, for both countries, we cannot change our country overnight. It will be a long transformative process. So I seldom use the word revolution in describing what is happening in China. If we insist on using the word, I would rather call it a long revolution. So that means internet in China will not change Chinese politics. But one good thing is that the use of internet will accumulate social capital for the Chinese people. So in the long run, those social capital will give birth to a very strong civil society, which will struggle and fight for individual rights of the ordinary Chinese people. Thank you all.
I'd like to, since you mentioned the differences between India and China, the interesting thing when you look at online expression, you will and see how India is imagined and viewed by online citizenry. India is in love with China and wants India to aspire to be China. And America is no longer a nation for aspiration. So we want to be like China and beat China. So, and that's our political slogan also. Many leaders are quoting China as a new destination for aspiration for the next India, and the next India should be like bigger and bolder China.
Thank you, Rajesh. Jahidu, short and quick.
Yeah, I think the future lies in mobile telephony. The growth of mobile phones and mobile penetration in Bangladesh is phenomenal. We've now just got 3G. It's only in the cities, but already ordinary people, people who have very limited buying power, rely on mobile phones for communication and are beginning to use the mobile phones for all sorts of innovative uses we at the high end have not always considered. I think that is one way in which we will overcome mainstream media. That is one way in which people will extract power into their own hands where the establishment will not have it. The establishment will try and throttle media in whatever form as long as they can. I don't think they have the ability.
Thank you, Shahidul, and thank you for your attention. And we're going over to the next panel. Thank you.